Okay, so I'll be talking to you today about the way in which the Riversleigh fossil record potentially explains how modern marsupial communities, particularly those from closed environments, might respond to climate change. So hopefully you're all aware, or should be, unless you've been living under a rock for the last 30 to 40 years. That's how long we've been warning about climate change, that the world is undergoing global warming, and this is the IPCC 27 special report, an extremely optimistic report. Basically what it says is that we've already hit 1 degree warming from pre-industrial times, and that following the trajectory here, we are on target to hit 1.5 degrees very shortly, and likely to hit 2 degrees by 2060. Now, this report actually then goes on to suggest that temperatures will stabilise or even decrease as emissions reach net zero in 2055. Now, I don't know about you, but that trajectory there, going straight up, doesn't look like it's going to level off at any time soon. A lot of people think that's extremely optimistic and suggest that 3 to 4 degrees over the next 100 to 200 years is very likely given present emission abatement rates. And as we know, the warming will persist for centuries to millennia and will continue to cause further long-term changes. So, happy days. So how does this affect modern marsupial communities? Well, if we take the wet tropics area, World Heritage Area in Queensland as an example, so that is the area between Cooktown, Cairns and Townsville, up onto the Atherton uplands as well. About 20% of that area is protected by a national park. It is home to 117 mammal species and a third of Australia's marsupials, and many of which are endemic to that region. And how are these animals responding well to current climate change? They're not responding well at all. Professor Stephen Williams, you would have seen 2 days ago in the Sydney Morning Herald, he talked about the response of some of these animals to what's happening up there. He's found that many animals, such as the green ringtail and lemuroid ringtail, are retreating from 800 metres to 900 metres to even 950 metres. He's also finding that species that aren't even considered threatened at the moment, are becoming locally extinct. And some, such as these here, drop dead above 29 degrees Celsius. And they had 6 days over 39 degrees in this last summer, and they found a lot of dead possums on the beaches. They were going down to the water to try to stay cool and drink salt water. And he's concluded that 50% are likely to be extinct by 2100. So if we look at the temperature of planet Earth, as Mike was talking about before, we can see that it's varied wildly through time, but has from KT boundary, KP boundary, basically been a steady decline since the Paleo-Eocene thermal maximum some 55 million years ago. Basically a move from greenhouse to icehouse conditions with a little bit of variation amongst that, and a very sharp climb here in modern times. But is there a period within that graph where we can find carbon dioxide concentrations that are equivalent to those today and projected to rise, where the temperatures were roughly equivalent, 2 to 4 degrees increase, where peak temperatures maintained for long periods, hundreds of thousands to millions of years, which are ecologically significant, and where we can find fossil faunas before, after, and during that change. No, there ain't any. So parts of the foreign country. Well, no, of course there is, otherwise it'd be a very short talk. So I prefer principles outlined by Charles Lyell and Hutton, fathers of geology. The present is the key to the past, and the past is the key to the future. If we zoom in on that graph and look at the Pleistocene, interglacial glacial period, this might be a potential candidate for looking at some of these things, but we can see the temperatures don't really stabilise. They fluctuate wildly, as Mike was talking about. We see sudden increases in temperature and more gradual decreases in temperature. They vary wildly between 2 and 7 degrees. This one's up to a 7-degree increase. And again, it's really difficult to find fossil faunas that are well dated from before, during, and after one particular event. Now we could go back to the Pliocene, where we have more suitable temperature ranges, 2 to 4 degrees, but again, very few areas of stability within that. And again, very hard to find fossil faunas from before, during, and after. But if we go back just a little bit further into the Miocene, you can see that little, if my hand will stay still, that little green blip there. That little green blip seems to be oscillating between 2 and 4 degrees, so the right temperature range. It is stable for 3 to 4 million years. And more importantly, carbon dioxide concentrations at the start of this event were equivalent, that red line is today, it's now gone past that, 400 parts per million, and rose to 500 parts per million. So we're talking equivalent to what we're going to see in the next 1 to 200 years. This period is called the MMCO, or the Mid-Miocene Climatic Optimum. It's also called lots of other names, Mid-Miocene Oscillation, Monterey Excursion, Carbon Excursion. People just call it the MMCO. And we think this was caused by massive volcanic eruptions in northwestern United States. They covered 150,000 cubic kilometres to a depth of over 200 metres, and the eruptions were pretty much continual for about 200,000 years. And what I found really interesting in the paper, there are lava fountains 1.5 kilometres high. That's just amazing. And they were the biggest eruptions in the last 16 million years. So this event, the MMCO, seems to start at about 17.5 million years and has ended by 13.5, where temperatures continued their steady decline. So that brings us to Riversleigh. The Riversleigh fossil record, or the MMCO, is perfectly framed by the Riversleigh record. So the MMCO is this green section here. We can see that of the 300 plus sites known at Riversleigh at present, these have been traditionally put into biocorrelated into faunal zones A to D, from the late Oligocene to the late Miocene. A small sample of these have now been radiometrically dated by John Woodhead, and a number of the sites have been identified as belonging, I should say brilliantly identified, as belonging to the same paleo community as well. So for instance, at 18 million years, we have sites such as Camel's Sputum and Neville's Garden here, which almost certainly belong to the same paleo community, which is just tentatively been given this name, the Belunga Maya Nimioquilo paleo community, because they are characteristic genera of that paleo community. So they're at the onset of this MMCO. We then have a couple of sites at the peak MMCO, about 14.5 million years, such as DDDD, and the better known AL90 site, where the fauna is quite well known. And then at the end of the MMCO, where we go into what's called the transition period, we have another paleo community here, the Trichoceros and Nimbodon paleo community, represented by sites such as Gags, Hanks Hollow, Last Minute, and Ringtail, which has been dated, at about 13.5 million years. So Riversleigh does frame this MMCO event really well. So we look at the pre-MMCO paleo community at 18 to 17 million years. It shows extremely high diversity, equivalent to rainforests, Costa Rica, South America, Borneo, etc. Almost certainly a closed forest, up to 74, well, more than 74 marsupial species, more than 27 marsupial families, 28 different possum species, including acrobatids, Pteroids, phalangerids, weirdos, pseudocheiroids, burrowmiids, murreletids, pilky pildrids, Even amongst the kangaroo species, we have Hypsiprimnodontids, Belungomyes, Balbarids. There are 8 marsupial carnivore species, including thylacinids, little ones up to big ones. Same with the marsupial lions and other Dasyuromorphians. Up to 10 bandicoot species living sympatrically. Kenny will be talking about that later this year, as well as koalas, medium to large diprotodontids, windodiots, wombat-like creatures. And none of this is even including the bats, sorry Sue, or platypus. Then if we move into that peak MMCO, when temperatures reach their most in this MMCO event, we have the AL90 local fauna. Again, showing high diversity relative to modern times, but probably only medium level diversity as far as Riversleigh is concerned, and probably representing a closed or maybe wet forest, tall wet forest community. We can see a massive reduction in possums, still high, but a massive reduction in possums, kangaroos and marsupial carnivores and bandicoots in particular. Then as we come out of the MMCO, we have the 13.5 million year paleo community, which goes back to very high diversity closed forests. We now have 50 plus marsupial species, 24 marsupial families. We can see that possums, kangaroos, marsupial carnivores and bandicoots have almost recovered to the pre-MMCO levels. So basically what we're seeing is moving from 17.5 to 14.5 million years as the MMCO hit its stride. At least as far as Riversleigh is concerned, we lost roughly 70% of species and 50% of families. But then as we came out of the MMCO, an increase of about 140% on the species levels and 85% on families. So that's just looking at the diversity. Using the methodology of this joker, we can we can work out body size of extinct marsupials to the nearest microgram just from one tooth, as well as their personalities. And we can build body size distributions from those. And these are the body size distributions for those paleo communities I was just discussing. So the red line here represents the pre-MMCO diversity-rich community. The blue line represents the post-MMCO community of 13.5, and AL90 is represented by this yellow line, so that's the peak MMCO. So we can see that this is a log scale on the left. So from 10 kilos to 100 kilos, the distributions are quite similar. The large animals are quite similar between the communities. And for 10 to, say, 500 grams, the small animals, they're also reasonably similar. It's in this middle range here, or the critical weight range, between 500 grams and 5 kilos, where the big differences occur. We can see that for AL90, they just fall away. They do recover a little bit afterwards. If we look at the median body size of these, for the pre-MMCO community, median body size about 750 grams. But that jumps dramatically at AL90 to about 1,400 grams, and then drops again afterwards to about 500 grams. Incidentally, 500 to 750 grams is the median weight range for marsupials in wet tropic rainforest other than uplands. So that's interesting. Might draw some parallels, something to say about habitats. And also 1,400 grams, which we're seeing at AL90, is equivalent to Royal National Park wet tall open forest, which Paul Adams and other people consider as senescent, dying rainforest, if you like. So another interesting parallel there. So what's the take-home message from all this? Well, the bad news is that, at least what Riversleigh tells us, is that we lose about 25% of species for each degree Celsius rise. And that is remarkably close to the prediction of 50% loss for the wet tropics in the next 100 years with a 2-degree rise. The good news is that for every degree Celsius decrease, number of species increases by 45%. The bad news is at Riversleigh that took about 350,000 years for every 45% increase. Even badder news is the rate of species loss. At Riversleigh, we lost from that pre-MMCO to peak MMCO period, we lost 50% of species over 1 to 2 million years, mostly in that critical weight range, which increased the median body mass. But today, in the wet tropics, that same rate of loss, 50%, is estimated to happen in 100 to 200 years, probably less than that, i.e. 10,000 times faster. So what is the net result of all this? Net result is that we're going to have a lot of hot, cranky, friendless, fat marsupials by the time this is all